Hello.
I think you're the first one on the call.
Okay. Is this Steve?
Yes.
Hi, Steve.
How are you doing, sir?
Good. I was the last one on the call last time, so I thought I'd try to reverse that. Reverse that trend.
There you go, sir. Now you're setting the example.
Yeah. I'm going to mute and keep working then.
Okay, sir.
Testing, testing, testing.
You're like me, Patrick. You got more hair on your face than on your head. Hello, Isaac.
Afternoon.
Hi, Pam. Isaac, you had no indication that we wouldn't. Let me rephrase that. You have every indication that everyone will be in attendance?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, Judy.
Mike, can I get that board resolution signed by you from last month's meeting, and then I can get that to Monica and she can sign that. We got to turn that in for the grant application through IDOT.
Is this something else other than I signed last time?
It's what Jill sent you to have signed at the end of last month's meeting. That's the board resolution that the board approved.
Okay, I'll dig it up and look for it. I don't recall having seen it, but that doesn't mean it wasn't sent. I mean, that's. I did sign something within the last month, though, and send it back to you to send up. It was for another grant application, I think.
You know, it's the bus and bus facilities grant application, it's a letter of support. Yeah, you did sign that for me.
I think it's something different.
Yeah, this is the board resolution the board approved last month for the IDOT grant.
Okay. Hi, Monica. Hi, Julie.
Hey,
Linda.
Hi, Linda.
Hey, how you doing, Mike?
Good.
There's a lot of moving parts in it.
Yes, it is, Linda. Isaac, Ryan is out of town. He was going to join remotely though, right?
Yeah, that's what he told me. He was going to join the meeting.
Okay. I'll give him one more minute and then we'll just go ahead and start since we have a quorum. All right, let's call the Connect Transit Board of Trustees meeting to order. This is a budget work session. Jill, can you call the roll, please?
Chairman Mike McCurdy.
Here.
Vice Chairman Ryan Whitehouse. Is that Ryan? Secretary Monica Bullington.
Here.
Trustee Judy Buchanan. Trustee Julie Heil.
Here.
Trustee Linda Foster.
Here.
Town of Normal Manager Pam Reese.
Here.
City of Bloomington Manager Tim Gleason.
Jill, Judy is present, but I didn't hear her.
I didn't hear her either. Judy, are you there? Oh, I'll mark her here.
Judy, you having some technical difficulties?
No, I'm fine. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, all right, good, all right,
Just a little operator deficiency here.
all right, all right. I understand there's no public comment this evening.
That's correct.
Okay, that brings us to a discussion about our FY 2021 budget. Isaac, do you want to start or is it Patrick? You're muted, Isaac.
Thank you
I
for reminding me.
assume you'll return the favor for me too.
Yeah, thank you. I'll go over some budget highlights and then open up the board for questions. So I'm going to start on page 21 of the budget draft and just talk about expenses and revenues. So majority of our expenses are due to wages and benefits. Tech Transit's providing a service, and majority of our expenses are in the wages and benefit category. We also saw some smaller increases in bus repair and maintenance due to the age of our 10 used fixed route buses. We're in the process of rebuilding some of the engines on those vehicles right now. And I'll talk about our replacement plan for those buses when we talk about the capital budget. And then also we saw an increase in our computer software line item. Majority of that increase is not for computers, it's actually for the service licensing agreements that we have with various software vendors such as FleetNet, Synchromatics, Remix. Those service licensing agreements are going up, and that's being reflected in our budget. In terms of revenue, a lot of our revenue right now is up in the air. We have suspended fare collection. At this time, I don't know when we're going to start collecting fares. The board is going to be voting on extension of the fare collection suspension at this month's meeting. Additionally, we don't know when ridership is going to return, where we're going to see increases in fare revenue. On top of that, IDOT right now, our funding comes from IDOT through the sales tax receipts. As we know, sales tax receipts are down across Illinois due to coronavirus. We are planning to see some sort of decrease in our revenue generated from IDOT. They're giving us 65% of our expenses right now, are reimbursing us. We could see somewhere around 45% reimbursement of expenses. We just don't know right now, and IDOT has not notified us of what they're planning on doing. So, as I talked about last month, we did receive the Federal CARES Act, $9.1 million. That is going to be used to cover some of our revenue gaps moving forward in the next year, possibly into the second year of this operating budget, the capital budget. Then on page 22, it's the 5-year operating budget. And this time last year, we were talking about Connect Transit seeing a deficit in year 24, 25. We're going to run out of federal funding. That has been, what's been great is that has basically been erased. Through the Connect Transit Connect to the Future Working Group, we are requesting additional $250,000 from the town of Normal and City of Bloomington, up to $500,000 in the next fiscal year. With our extended operating budget, we look to be solvent all the way through 2030 on page 22, our 5-year operating budget. What I'm going to do is just stop there before I get into the capital budget, see if the board has any questions at this time.
This is Judy.
Excuse me, Judy. I'd like to let Jill know that Ryan has joined the meeting. He joined at 4:36.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Trustee Buchanan.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Isaac. My first question was about the CARES Act, but I'm glad we have a place for it. I know knew we would have. A couple of things that are happening in the state scene right now, and you may not be able to specifically speak to them, but the graduated income tax and the fact that this is looking at a budget with significant less revenue. Have you factored in, or have you an alternate plan if either of these represent a significant reduction in monies?
Yes, so Patrick Kubrick and I, Finance Director, and I have looked at scenarios of IDOT reducing their reimbursement rate of 65% currently to 45% over the next 2 years, and then plugging that budget gap with CARES Act funding.
Okay.
Under that scenario, we will be okay through the next 2 years. However, if IDOT only reimburses us 35% or 30%, that's when it gets a little dicey when you're projecting out 2 years and having to fill that large gap from IDOT. It's really hard to replace 65% of your funding, which, we've been in this situation before back in 2016 when the state didn't have a budget. We did not see reimbursement from the state for 6 months. We had to use all of our reserve funding, about $6 million, to continue providing services.
Thank you. Thank you.
Other questions for General Manager Isaac Thorne or Finance Director Patrick Kubrick?
Yeah, I do. This is Linda Foster. I just curious if there's any other opportunities out there to generate any other funding. Are there any other funding sources that we can look into that would help compensate some of this gap?
Yes, there are other areas that we're looking at. I know that across the United States, other agencies have had some success. Some have not had success with receiving FEMA dollars due to the coronavirus impact it's had in different communities. So that is one thing that we're looking at right now is do we go after some of the FEMA dollars that are available, and how much money can Connect Transit receive through that? Like I said, some agencies have had success, some have not had success with that. So that's something we are going to be looking at.
This is Julie. Couple questions, Isaac. So I understand that you and Patrick are putting a conservative lens over the state funding. Can you say just a little bit more than you have about what IDOT has said? Are you all presuming, or have they said to expect some kind of change, or what's the nature of their messaging?
So IDOT is really, really encouraging all downstate agencies in Illinois, such as Springfield, Peoria, Champaign, Decatur, to use CARES Act funding as much as possible due to IDOT not knowing how much revenue they're going to have coming in. Last time we heard from IDOT regarding this matter, they said that their revenue, sales tax receipts were down 10 to 17%. I believe that was back in March when this pandemic just hit our the state of Illinois. So that's the message that we're getting from IDOT in regards to our future funding. And I'm also a board member of Illinois Public Transportation Association, and what we have talked about as board members with other agencies is looking at a funding model from IDOT of 45% instead of 65%. A lot of us think that is very generous due to what's going on right now. I agree with that. So that's the model the numbers we took to and applied to our budget over the next 2 years. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Pat, we also looked at not receiving any fare box revenue whatsoever as well, I think in that projection.
Yes, that's correct. And it looks like at the time being, we're going to be receiving some contract revenues, so.
I would imagine that transit dollars might be an attractive target for the state, since it's one of the few places states are getting federal funds. So yep. I do understand that. It's unfortunate for us. Yep. I also wanted to double check. I think you've said this, but I want to confirm that there is no timeline on use of the CARES dollars.
Yep, that is correct. There's no current expiration date of CARES Act funding. That's what's in the legislation. However, what we're also hearing from members of Congress is they want us to use that money specifically for COVID-related expenses, loss of revenue, such as fare box revenue. But right now, there's no end date for that funding.
And the other, you're starting to answer my next question, which is that it's not necessarily funding that is constrained, except insofar as operations, it needs to apply to operations that are affected by COVID, which is all operations.
Correct.
Is there that you cannot use those dollars for?
There's not. You can also use it for capital as well, but right now we're planning for just using it for operations to get us through the next 18 to 24 months until there's some kind of vaccine or medical treatment for COVID-19.
And my last question, and thank you for taking my questions, is, and you maybe can help me just read this on the documentation you provided, but at what point do you begin to see that the available CARES dollars kind of beginning to be insufficient? It looks like we're good through 2025 with a pretty conservative trajectory.
Correct, yeah.
The question is sort of when do we really hit trouble?
Yeah. So what I'll do following this meeting, what we have not done, me and Patrick have not given the board our outlook on IDOT only providing 45%. We can send the board those numbers. That way you guys see it. But really, after the second year, if we're still in this current situation, almost all of our CARES Act funding will be dried up. I did not show that the CARES Act money or the reduced IDOT funding in this 5-year projection. So what I can do, like I said, is send that to the board after this meeting so you guys can see that and what we're talking about. But really all of our CARES Act funding would be pretty much used by 2020, end of fiscal year 2022, if IDOT's only reimbursing us at 45%.
Okay. And this is Judy again. Julie, are you finished?
You go ahead, and then I do have one more question, but I have a hunch it might be the same question you're gonna ask.
Okay, and I thank you. I believe that, Isaac, you did indicate that some, and I know we're gonna talk more about this, some of the Connect to the Future recommendations are reflected in the budget figures, and one in particular is the one fare for all. In anticipation that there are no fares, where have you allowed in the budget, or is that something that you and Patrick will be doing? If we are having to continue no fares for some time, what does that do to our budget, as well as the one fare is, particularly as we are probably resuming some kind of normalcy, we may not have the kind of ridership we have in the past. And so that to me suggests a further reduction in those dollars. And I'm wondering how we're going to reflect that in our budget.
Yeah, so moving forward, because we're dealing with the unknown, we don't know at this point in time what IDOT's going to be able to reimburse us at, what kind of level, and not knowing when we're going to start collecting fares. We prepared this budget pre-COVID-19 with the ability of using our CARES Act money to plug those revenue gaps, basically. But it's very, very hard to project when we'll start collecting fares, what rate IDOT reimburses that without that information. So what I plan on doing is coming back to the board with the regular financial information on a monthly basis and having those discussions on where we're at in terms of fare revenue, where we're at with IDOT reimbursement. What I'm hoping is that as lawmakers go back to Springfield, we'll have some more clarity around this issue in the next 90 days. That'd be my hope.
Thank you, because I can see that 9.1 million disintegrating fairly quickly. Is there any expectation in subsequent action by the Congress for more funds that transit is going to be included once again?
Well, there is I guess this is another number 3 or number 4, the fourth stimulus plan, I do believe, that's passed the House. It's now going into the Senate. Just by reading the news and what I'm hearing from Cardinal Infrastructure is that bill will probably be talked about by Republican Senate, Democrat Senate, and probably changed. It's not going to come out the same as what the House already passed, is what I'm hearing.
Okay. Thank you, Isaac.
Other questions from trustee members regarding the FY 2021 budget? I just wanted to get into weeds just a little bit. You were talking about the increase in expenses for our aging fleet. That's not unexpected and it was planned for. Rebuilding engines is not something that's unusual for Connect Transit or the buses. That's a way to extend the life of the current rolling stock.
Correct. Yeah, our situation right now, the ones that we're rebuilding are actually used vehicles that we purchased from Champaign Urbana Mass Transit District.
You're rebuilding those?
Yes, because we will not receive our first delivery of electric vehicles until 2021, the summer of 2021. So we are going to have to use these vehicles all the way through 2024. So that's another 4 years from now. So we're rebuilding these engines in-house. We're not sending them out. We're rebuilding in-house, which is cheaper for us, but still very expensive.
Okay.
So the one thing I've not talked about yet is just the capital budget. And so I want to just highlight some of our capital budget items. We have been very, very fortunate in being awarded over $11 million in federal and state grants over the last 3 years. And we're going to be able to leverage that funding with what we believe at the time, and hopefully going forward with state dollars that we're not using from the operating budget through debt service. And we've had many discussions with the board about this. But by leveraging our federal dollars with state dollars, we would basically be able to purchase all of our electric vehicles, Better Bus Stops campaign, and put in the solar infrastructure for the electric vehicles, all without using local capital dollars that we have in reserves. Again, going forward, we're going to see how that plays out at the state level with the current budget situation. But our focus is getting the Better Bus Stops campaign completed, having 100% ADA compliant stops by 2024. We budgeted about $2.5 million over the next 4 years in our budget. We also want to replace 15 electric vehicles between fiscal year 21 and 24. And then the last thing is also install the solar array to offset the utility costs here for our facilities and the costs of those electric vehicles, which we believe will decrease our operating expenses by 2023 and 2024. And then we've also applied for, last month the board approved grant applications for both the state of Illinois and the federal government, the Bus Facilities Grant, to apply for a downtown transfer center. So that's a highlight of our capital budget. And I do want to make one note on page 26. In fiscal year 2020, we had budgeted $105,000 for bus shelters, pads, seating, and lighting. Our actual expenses are going to be somewhere close to $300,000 by the end of this fiscal year. So we have obviously stepped up and done more shelters than we originally budgeted for. The board has approved those expenses. So just want to make note of that because that $105,000 looks a lot less than the other years prior and after.
Any other questions regarding the budget? Do you want to talk any more about the Connect to the Future Working Group recommendations and the Green A pilot?
Yes, so included in the fiscal year 2021 draft operating capital budget, we've included the Connect to the Future recommendations of the one rate for all fare structure, the expansion of capability service to the town and city limits, and then finally the Better Bus Stops campaign of completing all stops by 2024. What I have not included, and I want to have a discussion with the board about, get their feedback, is the zero fare green route pilot. I think it's very difficult in our current environment to both simultaneously promote the green route, getting people on board of that, and also telling people that only essential trips. And in addition to that, there's also a lot of events in both uptown and downtown that have been canceled or going to be canceled in the near future. It's very, very hard to promote the green route and during this time. What I would like to do is push it off 1 year and we look at it for fiscal year 2022 budget. I want to get the feedback from trustees on
that. Maybe start with Judy and Julie, since you guys chaired, both of you trustees chaired the Connect to the Future Working Group.
Right, and thank you. I do agree with Isaac. I think we had a good idea, and we still have a good idea in terms of trying this kind of a pilot. But right now, I don't think our environment and our communities are ready to embark on this. We want this to be successful. We want it to be data driven and allow us to really learn something from it. And I don't think we're going to have that opportunity in the current environment. I would hope that the board and Isaac and his team would be, as you say you are, looking to the future. I don't know when. It would be nice to project it for 2022, but as they say, there's so much unknown. But I do agree with the fact that I think we really, if we want to be successful and want to learn from it, that now is not the time to try it.
Julie, I would agree with Judy and Isaac. I appreciate the, just realistic and pragmatic thinking that you all are doing here. It makes no sense to run a pilot that's about increasing bus riders, public transit ridership while telling people not to ride, right? One thing we might want to think about, depending on how the dollars pan out, is whether we can find a way to strategically time the pilot with people returning to public life such that we can really take advantage of habit change that may well be underway for a lot of us in response to COVID, and reposition public transit in the best way we can. I mean, I'm also aware that people are somewhat fearful about the proximity that public transit requires at this time, just generally speaking. But I also think that Connect has done a fabulous job of enacting controls and protections and demonstrated that it's an honest broker and a good partner for community members.
So I'm thinking, I agree that your responsibility of, or it's just the dual position of trying to get people to ride a bus that we're telling people not to ride. I mean, that just obviously doesn't make sense. I wonder if this is a good time, based on what Julie was talking about, to discuss what to expect. I know Isaac and I had talked a little bit about when we will, I don't want to say forced, but what's the trigger point of us opening and going back to normalcy? And, you know, I do like the idea of the habit change that Julie talks about, but I also question that much will be changed, despite if the economy is open and people are out moving. If our health concerns are going to be much different, then we still need to hold off longer. So I don't know.
And Trustee Bullington, that's sort of, you're sort of going down the same path I am, is that there may be some cues for us to be aware of as things begin to reopen, that, you know, as we begin to consider re-implementing fares, that might be a time for us to then again address whether or not we want to do a pilot project or one fare for all. But yeah, I'll let Isaac speak more to that.
Yeah, I think what's going to determine when we start collecting fares, we may be put in a position, you know, as the economy opens up soon, at that point, to ensure safe social distancing, we may have to go back to regular service. We may have to start collecting fares because, as I told the board, we did see some joyriding from certain individuals when the weather was really nice, where they were getting on and riding. Obviously, we only want to encourage essential travel at this time, but they were riding because it was free. They wanted to get out of the house. So I think if the economy opens back up soon, we probably will have to go back to regular service to ensure safe social distancing, don't have overcrowding on buses, and look at enforcing fares or collecting fares. But before we can do that, we have to make sure we protect our employees and passengers. So we've already started the process of looking at what we're calling sneeze guards to have installed on all buses. We have 22 New Flyer buses that we can buy something that's already been manufactured, but we will have to retrofit, and we're working on this now. About 14 buses with a sneeze guard to protect the driver when passengers do pay their fares, that the passenger is not coughing on the driver or the driver is coughing on the passenger. So that's what we're looking at doing, and we want to have those installed sooner rather than later, because we don't know, we may be forced to basically run regular service and collect fares soon. So we want to be prepared for that.
I appreciate you being forward thinking and, you know, just thinking what people are going to need. So I'm glad that you're already working on that.
Thanks.
By sneeze guard, is it like just a piece of plexiglass like we see at the grocery store? Something along those lines?
Yeah, it's a plexiglass piece that goes up near the face of the operator and also down below near the fare box. So it's, like I said, it's just a sneeze guard, but yes, it's a plexiglass kind of infrastructure.
Okay. Other questions or comments from trustees?
So are we just, I mean, we're going to have to just keep really close tabs on all of this and basically be ready to act, because we're not, I don't want to say we're not necessarily in control, but there's going to be outside factors that you guys are going to have to basically be ready to go depending on those circumstance changes.
Yeah, like I said.
Yeah, I agree. also, are we communicating with the drivers to let them know what Plan B would be, and then also incorporate any other ideas that they may have, because they're faced with this on a daily basis. So we want to make sure that the things that they are encountering, that we're making plans to try to address.
Yes, I would say that I am not right now talking about going back to collecting fares in the next month or two. That is something we have not talked to the drivers about at this point in time, because I think we're still far away from that. But that's something I have not talked to the drivers about. Like I said, the next meeting I'm going to have the board vote on an extension of the suspension of fares through July 5th. But we are seeing communication regarding our COVID efforts and ways that we can provide more safety to our employees and passengers. So we're still in that ongoing open dialogue. We had a conversation this morning as well.
Okay.
So to be clear, you're communicating with all staff, but not in particular about what we were talking about.
Correct. I have not brought up when we're going to start collecting fares. I'm just trying to think ahead of, if we do have to do this, we're going to have some kind of safety barriers, sneeze guards in place to be able to do that safely. But I don't have an exact date of when we're going to start collecting fares, because I'm taking a 1 day, 1 week, 1 month approach to this, because information is changing. We're learning more about COVID-19 every day. So that's the approach I'm taking right now.
I just ask a sort of a wide open blue sky kind of question. Have staff considered or talked about whether or not it's actually possible to go back to fares after having free, no fares for so long? For the riding public that's already become accustomed to that, the reaction we might get from some of them is really, so I just wondered if staff has actually thought about that and thought about ways that if there's any way to absorb moving forward a no fare situation.
Yeah, we have talked about that on a staff level. Obviously, we are not just going to let our customers, riders know, 1 or 2 days in advance, oh, by the way, we're collecting fares. We want to have, I think a month would be great. I just don't know if it's realistic, but we want to have at least 2 weeks notice if we go back to collecting fares, they're made aware of this, because we all know that our riders, our customers, are probably hurting financially right now. They maybe lost hours at work, or they've lost their jobs. So we know it's going to be a financial burden for them when we go back to collecting fares. I think this has been great for our customers. We've heard very, very positive response from them about not having to pay the fare, not having to buy a monthly pass because of their financial situation right now. So I think we're going to have to definitely take that into consideration. It's just balancing, again, the needs of your customers with the needs and safety of your employees at all times. It's a difficult balance sometimes. I don't think it's going to be an easy decision going back to collecting fares after we've not done it now for probably almost 4 months. We start considering.
So at our meeting a week from today, we'll vote to extend. We'll have an item on the agenda asking trustees whether or not they want to continue to extend a fareless situation through July 6th. That would mean if we wanted to start collecting fares July 6th, we'd have to address that at our June meeting.
Correct. And what I'm doing is I'm taking this to the board every month at the regular meetings on extension of another month, because this is constantly changing, information and data is constantly changing. So I'm taking a month-by-month approach with the board on these recommendations on extending the suspension of fare collection. Instead of coming out and saying we're going to do this for 3 or 4 more months, we're taking a 1-month approach now. I know there's agencies elsewhere that I have started collecting fares, but they do have those barriers up. I just think because of what the governor's current stay-at-home shelter-in-place orders, I think our cues and our direction is going to be really led by what's going on with the governor saying with the shelter in place.
What are you hearing from other agencies regarding a return to fares? Anything? Too early to tell?
So I know that the barriers are one way that the drivers are feeling safer. because they have that barrier from the passengers when they come to the fare box. And I would say when you realize how close that passenger or rider is at the fare box to that driver, it is a little discomforting. So I think having that barrier in place is very, very important. But last time I talked to somebody at Indigo, they were on a call last week. That was the last update I got. It just started, but I've not heard back from them since.
This is Judy. I just wanted to add that as we're talking about those projections, the health department in Plain County, as well as the county board, are doing right now a review of whether or not there is support for the Heart of Illinois, Restore Illinois plan. And we're looking at the Restore Illinois plan from the governor's office, the Heart of Illinois plan that originated with Peoria, as well as the county board member has also submitted a plan. So should we move with the Heart of Illinois plan, it would give us perhaps a little bit more of an idea, not terribly definitive, but at least an idea of when some businesses might be resuming activity ahead of what's in the governor's plan. But there again, there's been no decision made as to whether this is a solid plan out of the Peoria Heart of Illinois or whether it's really wise for us to adopt it. But it is under review right now.
And there's been some reluctance from some leaders of municipalities that if the governor isn't on board with the Heart of Illinois Reopen plan, that they don't intend to participate.
Yes, correct. Both mayors have indicated that, but since it does involve so much of the public health aspect, public health department's been asked to take a look and actually make a recommendation to the county board as to whether or not it seems reasonable to move forward with the Heart of Illinois plan. But that as I said, that hasn't taken place yet. That's this week and next week discussions.
Thank you, Judy. That's a good perspective. That's something I hadn't considered.
Isaac, this is Julie. I'm curious about what has been your conversation with our municipalities. I know that the town is working on a reopening plan, and I know that because this is my community. I imagine that Bloomington is doing the same, of course. And I'm in the same way, you and I talked about this actually the other day, in the same way that as a part of the Connect to the Future work group, we advocated for transit to be at the table for zoning questions. I think that transit needs to be at the table for these reopening plans. It certainly has got implications both for our employees, our ridership, and because we are arterial through the community, it has implications for our being a potential contributor either to health or to harm. So can you talk at all about what your conversation with Tim or Pam or others has been?
Yeah, so I was able to talk to town manager Pam Reese today about the Heart of Illinois plan, and I would say, she's probably on the same belief I am, is that the lawmakers are coming back to Springfield, and this Heart of Illinois plan could possibly be nixed for something else. We just don't know yet. But as Mike was saying, we do know that both mayors have said unless Governor Pritzker approves of it, we're not going to move forward with it here in Bloomington Normal. So, but it absolutely does have an effect on how transit's going to be operating, whether we're doing reduced service with no fare collection, or if the economy starts opening up at a slower pace or a more rapid pace, we may have to go back to regular service and start collecting fares. And we want to take into consideration the safety measures we have in place to be able to do that and operate that service safely.
Any other questions about the budget? Or how COVID-19 might affect the budget? I had just one, and I touched on this with you one-on-one, Isaac, and that is the ability of staff to be flexible with this budget, given the fluid situation of the coronavirus crisis. The ability to move funds from one column to another, for instance, and, you know, at what point is the board apprised of that, or have to actually approve those kinds of budget adjustments?
Yeah, so again, I think it goes back to on a monthly basis. We're going to have a discussion every month on where we're at financially. What really is up in the air is more so our revenue sources than anything else in terms of fare box collection, revenue collection, and IDOT grant, how much they're going to reimburse us. And that is going to be, again, plugged with the CARES Act funding if we come up short. But it's going to be having those discussions every month of where we're at in terms of our revenue projections. And I'm hoping we may be able to, which I don't normally like doing, but we may have to revise the budget once we know more from IDOT, more information from IDOT, revising our budget entirely and sending it back to them, because we will have to make some adjustments in terms of fair revenue and IDOT's grant they're giving us.
Patrick, anything you want to add regarding that?
I think if IDOT does adjust their from 65%, they would almost want us to redo it, because as of now, our application says 65%, so we may force us to do it anyway. So.
Okay. Other questions or comments regarding the budget? I would urge trustees over the next week, if they have questions or as they review the document that came attached with today's agenda, to get a hold of Isaac, and if Isaac needs to direct you to Pat, I'm sure he'll do that to answer your questions regarding the budget. It will be on the agenda for the next meeting. We are sort of at the end of our time to approve a budget. I don't recall having approved one this late in my history with the board. Is that accurate?
Yeah, this is pretty late for us. I think we've maybe done it in prior years before I was a general manager, approved it this late. But typically we like to get it approved by March, get that to IDOT so they can approve our contract. Because typically if you get it beyond that, there's delays, and then delays when we get reimbursed.
Sure.
But I think they've actually extended it this year, correct, Pat, until, I don't know, was it May or April?
They extended to, I believe, either end of April or early May. So yeah, they've extended to, with the pandemic going on, that people are going to have issues. So.
Okay, I'm hearing no other questions or comments. Again, urge you to reach out to staff if you have questions. I am happy to see everyone or hear from everyone here today, and that everyone looks healthy. So that's a positive. So nice to see all of your faces and hear your voices. I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
Well, Mike, you can't. I'll make the motion to adjourn, but you can't see if I look healthy or not.
Yeah, right.
I saw you not too long ago, and you looked okay, I guess.
Well, I'm still incognito. I would like to make a motion and also aside, thank Isaac and the team. I think they and the drivers and the whole team have been very proactive, both in taking on this challenge, as well as now trying to look at that very difficult piece in terms of the operation and the funding. So thank you, gentlemen. You've done a great job.
I would concur with that.
As would I.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion for adjournment from Trustee Buchanan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Bullington. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay. We will see everyone next week. Thank you.
Thanks.
Stay healthy, everybody.
Yep, thanks.